I was traveling with friends when it started to feel wrong. Not dangerous, not frightening, just wrong in the way you notice a smell before you know what it is. Something out of place that your brain keeps trying to normalize. We were moving through places I couldn't name, not because they were strange, but because they felt unfinished, like placeholders, like locations meant to be passed through, not remembered. Train stations, corridors, platforms suspended over nothing. The kind of places where sound doesn't echo properly, and every surface looks like it's been cleaned too recently, as if the act of being occupied irritates them. I remember laughing at first, saying something like, "Have we been here before?" No one answered. My friends were still there, walking beside me, talking when spoken to, but there was a hesitation in them, a delay I couldn't place, like they were waiting for permission to respond. That was the first sign. The second was the certainty, not a memory, not a realization, just a weightless, undeniable knowing. I had done something wrong. I didn't know what it was. I searched for it the way you search your pockets for something you know you've lost. Over and over again, empty every time. The feeling didn't grow, it didn't sharpen, it simply stayed. I stopped walking and turned to them. "Did I do something?" I asked. They didn't look at me. That was worse than an answer. We reached a platform that didn't have a name, just a number printed too large on the wall, high enough that you had to tilt your head back to read it. The floor vibrated faintly, like a distant engine running below us, steady and patient. A train arrived without noise. No wind, no screech, just presence. The doors slid open as if they'd been waiting. As we boarded, I noticed him for the first time. He stood at the far end of the platform, hands at his sides, posture relaxed. He wasn't looking at me directly, but I knew, without logic, without proof, that he was there for me. He didn't follow us onto the train. He didn't need to. The doors closed, the train moved. Relief surged through me, irrational and immediate, like I'd passed some invisible test. Then I saw him again. He stood in the next car, already there, as if he'd always been. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He didn't acknowledge me at all. One of my friends leaned close and whispered, "Don't make eye contact." I swallowed. "Who is he?" No answer. The windows showed nothing but motion blur. No outside, no passing structures. Just the suggestion of speed without context, like the idea of travel rather than travel itself. The train stopped. My friends exited. I followed. The station was almost identical to the last, except the lighting was harsher and the walls were closer together. The air felt denser, like it resisted breathing. I checked behind us. He was there, always at a distance, never gaining, never falling back. I tried to tell myself he was security, a conductor, someone assigned to keep people moving, but no one else reacted to him. I asked again, louder this time. What did I do? A woman near the platform bench glanced at me, startled, not by the question, but by the fact that I'd asked it out loud. "You know why you're here," she said. "I don't," I replied. She studied my face with something like sympathy. Then she shook her head. "That's normal at first." At first, we took another train, then another. Each one felt shorter than the last, as if distance itself were being compressed. The stations blurred together. The numbers climbed, then stopped climbing, then started repeating. I began to notice that my friends no longer stood where they used to. They walked half a step ahead, or half a step behind, never quite beside me. When I spoke, they answered. but their responses felt rehearsed, like they were selecting from a limited set of acceptable replies. I stopped asking where we were going. Every time I tried, the answer was the same. We're still moving. That became the answer to everything. At one point, I slowed deliberately, letting the space open up between us. He slowed too. I sped up. He did not. He simply remained where he was, and the distance adjusted around him. I realized then that he wasn't following me through space. He was following me through permission. I reached the edge of another platform and turned, suddenly, facing him. "What do you want?" I asked. For the first time, he looked directly at me. His expression was calm, professional, almost gentle. "You know why you're here," he said. "I don't," I said, and this time my voice shook. He watched me carefully, as if measuring something invisible. "That will change," he said. The train arrived. The doors opened. My friends boarded without looking back. I hesitated for just a moment. He didn't move to force me. He didn't need to. The certainty was still there, waiting. The stations didn't have names. That should have bothered me more than it did. At first, I assumed it was a glitch, a temporary oversight, a place that hadn't finished loading yet. But after the third platform, with nothing but a number stenciled high on the wall, I realized the absence was intentional. Names create attachment. Attachment creates resistance. The signs changed slowly, like they were thinking about whether I deserved clarity. Some listed destinations that never arrived. Others listed nothing at all. The arrows always pointed forward, never back. I asked one of my friends where we were. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then said, "We're still moving." That became the answer to everything. The first station removed mirrors. I didn't notice at first. I only realized when I passed a wall of polished metal and felt that strange hitch in my chest that comes when your reflection doesn't greet you. I stopped and leaned closer. Nothing looked back. The surface reflected the platform behind me, the flickering lights, the smear of movement where people passed, but not me. I waved my hand. The space where it should have been stayed empty. I turned to my friends. They were reflected, perfectly. I reached out and grabbed one of them by the arm, panic flaring. "Can you see me?" He looked at my hand on his sleeve, confused. Then at my face. "Yes," he said, but there was hesitation there now, the kind that meant he was checking an internal list before answering. "Are you sure?" I pressed. He nodded. "You're thinner." The train arrived without sound. The doors slid open. No one pushed. No one rushed. We boarded because there was nowhere else to stand. Inside, the windows showed nothing but motion blur. No outside. No passing structures. Just the suggestion of speed without context, like the idea of travel rather than travel itself. He was already seated, closer again. He didn't look at me. He watched the door close. "You're adapting," he said. "I don't want to adapt," I replied. "That's normal too," he said. "Early on. What happens if I don't?" He tilted his head slightly. "You fracture." The next station removed privacy. The platform was wide and brightly lit. Too bright. Conversations carried unnaturally far. Every word flattened and stretched, echoing longer than it should have. I leaned toward one of my friends and whispered, "Don't say anything personal." He gave a thin smile. "You can't." A voice overhead spoke gently. "Please remember that all conversations are logged for your safety." "What safety?" I asked. No one answered. A woman nearby began to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, just steady tears sliding down her face as she stared straight ahead. One of my friends broke. She grabbed a stranger, someone she didn't know, and started talking. Fast, too fast, confessing things that had nothing to do with this place. Regrets, secrets, things she'd never told anyone. The stranger listened patiently. When she finished, they nodded and said, "Thank you for your submission." 2 attendants arrived, not guards, not aggressive. They spoke softly and guided her toward a door marked advancement. She looked back once, not at me, at the floor. The door closed, the sign flickered, then changed to complete. She did not return. The next station removed names. I noticed it when someone addressed me and stopped halfway through the sentence, mouth still open, eyes searching my face. "Sorry," they said. "I forgot." I waited for them to remember. They didn't. I tried to say my own name. The sound caught in my throat like it didn't belong there. The syllables felt heavy, incorrect, as if they were meant for a mouth I no longer had. My friends stopped using names entirely. They referred to each other with gestures, with glances, with pauses that somehow conveyed familiarity without identity. When I asked one of them what my name was, he stared at me for a long time. "I know I used to know," he said carefully. "That's as close as I can get." That's when I realized the stations weren't random. They were sequential. Mirrors, privacy, names. Each one stripped something that anchored you to being someone. He stayed close now, always within sight, sometimes seated beside me, sometimes standing just ahead on the platform. I stopped trying to avoid him. "What happens when there's nothing left to remove?" I asked. He smiled faintly, not kindly. "Then you're ready." "For what?" "For where you're going." We reached a station that didn't match the others. The lighting was warmer. The air smelled faintly like rain. The walls were textured, imperfect, like someone had tried to make the place feel lived in. A sign read, "Exit available." My heart slammed against my ribs. "This is it," I whispered. "This is how out." He didn't stop me. He only said, "If you leave here, you will not come back to this version of the process." I ran. The door opened onto a street, a real one. Cars passed. Wind moved through trees. The sky was the right color. The air felt right in my lungs. I stepped onto the pavement and laughed, breath hitching, relief crashing over me so hard my knees nearly buckled. Then I noticed sound arriving late, footsteps echoing twice, people walking past me without reacting when I spoke. I grabbed a man by the arm. "Can you see me?" He looked down at my hand. His eyes widened, not in recognition, but in fear. "You're too solid," he said. "You shouldn't be here like that." The world compressed, not visually, conceptually. Space folded inward, sound flattened, gravity thickened. He was there, not running, waiting. "I told you," he said calmly. "Intact arrivals suffer more." The street peeled away like wet paper. The station returned, brighter now, harsher. The sign overhead updated. "Reprocessing required." I collapsed onto the platform, shaking. He crouched nearby, not touching. "You were allowed to try," he said. "That matters?" "Matters to who?" I asked. "To what comes after," he replied. The train arrived. I boarded without being told. After the failed exit, the stations changed their behavior. Not dramatically, not visibly, just enough that I could feel the difference in my chest, like the pressure you notice when an elevator descends faster than expected. The signs no longer flickered. The announcement slowed. The trains waited longer at platforms, as if the system had decided speed was no longer necessary. People stopped pretending this was ordinary transit. I noticed that no one rushed anymore. Even new arrivals moved cautiously, like they sensed that haste was something the place would punish quietly. He walked beside me now, not close enough to touch, close enough that I could hear his breathing. We arrived at a station that was wider than the others. Taller ceilings, softer light. The air felt processed, filtered, until it had lost any scent that could anchor memory. At the center of the platform stood a desk. Just one, no queue, no barrier, no urgency. A person sat behind it, reading from a tablet they didn't appear to need. Their face refused to settle into anything recognizable. Not blurred, not hidden, just unimportant, as if the system had decided features were unnecessary here. "Please sit," they said. There was a chair. I sat. He remained standing behind me, hands clasped loosely behind his back. "This won't take long," the person said. "You've already completed several stages." "Stages of what?" I asked. They glanced down at the tablet. "Orientation." "That's not what this feels like." "No," they agreed. "Orientation rarely does." I leaned forward. "Tell me what I did." The tablet chimed softly as they scrolled. "You exited before authorization," they said. "I don't remember exiting anything." "That is expected." "Why?" I demanded. They set the tablet down. "Because memory of transition causes panic," they said calmly. "Panic leads to refusal. Refusal increases downstream severity." My stomach tightened. "Severity of what?" he answered before they could. "Arrival," he said. I looked at him. "Arrival where?" The person behind the desk folded their hands. "You are deceased," they said. The word didn't land like a revelation. It landed like confirmation. I laughed once, sharply. "No, I'd remember that." "Most don't," they replied. "Consciousness rarely recognizes its own termination cleanly." The station hummed softly beneath us. "This is hell," I said. "No," they said. "This is purgatory." The word felt misused, stripped of everything it used to mean. "Purgatory is optional," they continued. "Hell is not." I swallowed. "Then what is this for?" "Mitigation," they said. "Preparation." "For what?" "For arriving incorrectly." "I didn't choose that," I said. "Very few do," they replied. "Choice at the point of exit is often compromised." I looked at the exit door at the far end of the platform. Plain, unguarded, ordinary. "If I leave now," I said, "what happens?" He met my eyes. "You will arrive intact," he said. "That sounds better." "It is not." The person behind the desk tapped the tablet once. "Intact arrivals retain full identity," they said. "Memory, resistance, urgency. These traits increase distress exponentially in post-processing environments." "That's obscene," I whispered. "Yes," they said, "but efficient." I stood up too fast, chair scraping against the floor. "Show me." The station changed, not visually, spatially. The edges of the room folded inward without moving. Sound thickened. Light flattened into something heavy and directionless. For a moment, I couldn't tell where my body ended. "There," he said quietly. I felt it. No space to turn, no distance to measure, no sequence of moments. Just consciousness packed so tightly it couldn't fracture into thoughts. No screaming, no pain, just pressure. The station returned. I collapsed back into the chair, gasping. "That was a shallow glimpse," the person said. "Unprocessed arrivals go much deeper." I wiped my face with shaking hands. "And purgatory prevents that?" "It reduces it," they corrected. "It makes you smaller." The word cut deeper than anything I'd heard so far. "What happens to people who leave early?" I asked. "They are not punished for leaving," the person said. "They are punished for what remains." The intercom crackled overhead. Arrivals are reminded that continued delay increases downstream compression. I looked at the train, then at the exit, then at him. "You're not chasing me," I said slowly. "No," he replied. "I'm keeping pace with the version of you that still thinks there's a better option. And if I never stop running," he didn't hesitate, "then you arrive whole." The train arrived, its doors opened. No one pushed me, no one guided me. The choice sat between the platform and the exit, clean and terrible. "You were never being punished," the person behind the desk said. "You were being prepared." I stepped toward the train. After the desk, the station stopped pretending to be instructional. There were no more obvious lessons, no cleanly labeled removals. Whatever was left to take would be taken quietly, over time, without ceremony. The trains ran slower now. Sometimes they didn't stop at all. They carried us through long tunnels where the lights pulsed too slowly to feel reassuring, and the windows showed nothing but darkness thick enough to feel textured. In those stretches, conversation didn't just feel discouraged, it felt pointless. I noticed that people had stopped shifting in their seats. They sat the way furniture sits, aligned, balanced, as if the trains had been designed around their final posture. I folded my hands in my lap and tried to remember how I used to sit. That shouldn't have been difficult. Across from me, he watched the tunnel walls slide past. Not the lights, not the reflections. The walls themselves, as if something was written into them that only he could read. "You don't have to keep watching me," I said. "I'm not," he replied. "Then what are you watching?" "Stability." The word lingered uncomfortably. At one point, the train slowed without stopping. The lights dimmed. The air thickened, like pressure equalizing. A voice spoke, not overhead, but from the car itself. "Please remain still. This transit segment is unindexed." No one reacted. I realized then that people had stopped asking questions entirely, not just aloud, internally. The pauses where curiosity should have formed simply didn't. That frightened me more than the stations ever had. "How many times have you done this?" I asked. He took a long moment before answering. "Enough," he said. "For people like me? Yes. What happens if you fail?" He turned to me for the first time in a long while. "I don't," he said. The train resumed speed. At the next station, the floor was soft underfoot. Not carpet, not rubber. Something that gave slightly when stepped on, absorbing impact, dulling urgency. People moved slower there, not reluctantly, naturally. "What does this one take?" I asked. He watched a woman ahead of us stop suddenly, brow furrowing as if she'd lost the thread of a thought mid-sentence. "Urgency," he said. I tried to push forward, forcing my legs into motion. They obeyed. My mind didn't. Panic tried to rise and collapsed halfway, dissolving into something shapeless and dull. I stopped. "That's new," I whispered. "Yes," he said. "It's working." At another station, I realized I could no longer picture my own face. Not clearly. I knew the idea of it, the arrangement. But when I tried to imagine details, eyes, mouth, the way my expression shifted when I thought, it dissolved before it could settle. I told him. "That happens," he said. "Does it come back?" "No." I waited for grief. It didn't arrive. Later, or earlier, I noticed that I no longer flinched when the trains arrived. The absence of sound didn't register as strange. Doors opening without warning felt correct. I began timing my breathing to their movement. In, out, in, out. He matched my pace without comment. At one station, I realized we were the only two still standing. Everyone else sat, not restrained, not slumped, placed. Bodies aligned neatly with the architecture, like the system had finally found the configuration it preferred. "They're ahead of you," he said. "Ahead how?" "Less surface area," he replied. I thought about that for a long time. At another station, I tried to remember why leaving had felt so important. The memory still existed, but the urgency had drained out of it, leaving only a conceptual outline. Escape had once felt vital. Now it felt inefficient. I told him that. "That's not surrender," he said. "Surrender implies loss. This is alignment." We passed through a station where no one spoke at all. Not because they couldn't, because communication had become redundant. Everyone understood the same limited set of outcomes. Anything beyond that felt indulgent. I felt myself settling into that understanding. When the final train arrived, it was heavier. I couldn't explain how I knew that. It simply carried more consequence. The hum it produced vibrated through my bones instead of my ears. I boarded without hesitation. He paused at the threshold. "This is as far as I go," he said. I nodded. I'd known that already. "You will arrive," he continued, "less intact than before." "Is that enough?" I asked. He considered me carefully. "Yes," he said. "It will hurt less." The doors closed. The train moved. And for the first time since this began, I did not look back. When I opened my eyes, the train was gone. There was no sensation of stopping, no slowing, no arrival announcement. The world had simply resolved into a new configuration around me, like a thought reaching its conclusion. There was no station, no platform, no architecture pretending to be helpful. There was only space without distance, not darkness, something denser, a pressure that replaced direction. There was no forward or back, no up or down. I could still perceive myself, but only as a boundary, a surface being pressed from all sides. I understood then what he had meant. There was no movement here because movement implied sequence. Sequence implied time. Time implied hope. This place required none of that. I felt others, not bodies, not voices, occupancies, each held in its own compression, aware without being able to orient toward anything else. No screaming, no pleading, no chaos, just endurance. I tried to think of my name. There was nothing to reach for. I tried to remember what I had done wrong. The question dissolved before it finished forming. That was the mercy of preparation. I understood then that hell was not fire or pain or punishment. Those were metaphors invented by minds that needed scale. Hell was arrival without reduction. Hell was what happened when a consciousness reached this density, still convinced it deserved to argue. I felt myself settle further. Something adjusted, not in me, but around me, accommodating my remaining edges, smoothing them so they wouldn't tear. I realized distantly that if I had left earlier, I would have come here louder, sharper, full of questions that would have had nowhere to go. That version of me would have suffered more. This version simply endured. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't apply cleanly enough to measure. Sometimes I sense pressure changes, arrivals above me, unprocessed, still carrying too much shape. They compress violently at first, their presence disruptive. Then the system compensates. They quiet. Sometimes I sense the mitigation layers far above, trains still running, stations still removing mirrors, names, urgency, still preparing people like I once was, still offering exits, still allowing choice. I understand now why no one ever stopped me from leaving. Force wasn't necessary. The truth was enough. If you're listening to this and something about it feels uncomfortably familiar, if you've ever felt like you missed a step, skipped something essential, arrived somewhere too soon, don't panic. That feeling doesn't mean you're being punished. It means the system noticed you. And if you ever find yourself in a place that feels like transit but never quite lets you leave, if someone keeps pace with you without hurrying, if you're told you can exit at any time, but warned it will be worse later, stay. Let it take what it needs to take. Because this isn't the worst place you can end up. It's the place that prevents it. And the only mistake left to make is arriving whole.